ending the first quarter of the year, but with a new month comes a new program chair, and our program chair this month is Dan Allen. And as always, Dan has put together a wide variety of programs for us, and we're excited to see all of our speakers this month. So Dan's going to come and introduce today's speaker.
Thank you for the one clap. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, everybody. But before I introduce our speaker, though, I want to go over a little bit of our program for this month. Next week, we'll be having Pat Cantrell doing the economic report. And Roger, we're going to miss you, your shining face not being up there. So, all right, okay. On March 17th, we're having our District Governor, Bill DeVore, and we'll also be having Joan Schaffner coming. And Bill's going to basically talk a little bit about what his experiences have been on the road as District Governor. And he and then Joan will also talk about the district conference that we're combining with District 6150 out of Little Rock that's going to be in Hot Springs. So he'll be kind of talking with us about why we will want to attend. So I'm really looking forward to that. On March 24th, we're going to be having John McGraw, who is the new director for the Faulkner County Library, talking about all the library programs, the new plans that they have there. I don't know if you guys have ever been over there just recently, but that place is usually packed with people. And some of the programs they do there are just outstanding. And then March 31st, we're going to have our own Richie Arnold, who's going to come and talk to us about Conway Corporation's plans. The month really has been designated by Rotary International as water sanitation. And so I think hopefully we can get Richie to talk about our water supply and our sewer plans and what's been happening there. So with that, I think we're going to have a whole number of very good programs, so I hope you guys all attend. Now, what I'd like to do is introduce our speaker, Dr. Harold Hedges. And before I start, I'd like to give you a couple of quotes. William Osler once said, "A good physician treats the disease. A great physician treats the patients who have the disease." And then he went on to say, "The first duties of the physician is to educate the masses, not to take medicine." In other words, preventive care is one of the key things to do. Our speaker today will talk a little bit about that. He and his wife, and by the way, I never introduced Mary Helen. Hey, Mary Helen, why don't you stand up and let's say hello to you. The Reverend Mary Helen is retired. She was our pastor at St. Peter's, and so we're just really glad to have you here. Dr. Hedges, actually, they've been married, by the way, for 60 years. So I just a recognition on. Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Hedges. How did he start in medicine? There was a great story in Arkansas Business that said, where he was quoted as said, I had pneumonia when I was growing up, and I remember the family doctor who took care of me in a small town in Mississippi where we were living at the time. I've always wanted to be like him. He really became known as Doctor of the Year with the Arkansas Family Practitioners in 1986. But before that, when he graduated from the University of Arkansas, before that, he actually was a cheerleader for the Razorbacks. I think one of the greatest quotes that he's got, they asked him in the business article as to what was his fantasy dinner guests. And he said, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Abigail Adams, John Wayne, all right, and my wife and grandchildren. Again, he was named the state's Family Physician of the Year in 1986. He's an expert in basically, in particular, two medical issues, obesity and allergies. I think his talents and I think some of his values are listening. He's a great listener. And he often is quoted as saying, he was being able to get the personal touch for his clients just by sometimes just putting his hand on their shoulder and making them feel good in that way. Now, Mary Helen was quoted as saying, she said, I'm like an old stone that if you throw it in a pond, it goes bloop, bloop, bloop to the bottom. She said, Harold is like a shiny rock, river rock. It goes slip, 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 slip across the surface like skipping rocks across the surface on that. So with that, why don't we welcome Harold Hedges.
Skipping rocks never settle down to do anything very long. And that's kind of where it came from. I want to ask you all a question that has to do with medicine. How many of you are taking 2 or more prescriptions for any reason, high blood pressure or heart disease, anything? How many of you think that 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, you're going to be taking less medicine? Nobody. The cost of medicine has just gone ridiculously high, almost all across the board, from physical exams to medications to all the crazy tests that we doctors can order and get right now. Medicine is causing more bankruptcies than any other thing in the United States, and that is a horrible thing, realization to do. 5 or 6 years, I retired after 56 years in practice a year ago in November. In the last 4 or 5 years of practice, I kind of drifted towards a vegetarian type diet because I'd gotten interested, I had been interested in a long time, is a relationship between food and disease. And there is a big relationship between food and disease. I'll tell you a story about World War II in Norway, and something that was overlooked for a long time. The Germans invaded Norway in about 1938, 1939. They had about the same amount of disease, chronic disease, like heart disease, diabetes, and the like, in Norway. But something happened when the Germans came into Norway, and the Norwegians got more well for the next 4 or 5 years. Anybody know what happened in 1938 or 1939 in Norway?
Penicillin.
No, didn't have anything to do with penicillin.
Germans stole their food.
It's exactly right. What food? What food? They took all the meat, all the dairy, pigs, lambs, and all. And for the next 5 years, the health of the Norwegians just went up, 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 up. 1945, the war is over. And the meat and the milk and all begins to come back in. Over the next 8 to 9 years, they climbed right back up to the disease processes that they had before that. And that's one of the best tests that you can think about as far as trying to have some relationship between food and some of the diseases we have. What I'd like to do today in the next 20 minutes or so is to try to give you some education so you might be able to prevent or reverse. At my age and a lot of our ages, I'm 82, pushing 82, not quite there yet. But anything I can do has to do with reversing disease, not preventing disease. But a lot of these things are preventable. Obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, metabolic syndrome, some cancers, not all cancers, depression and anxiety, and a lot of chronic GI problems. All these things are related to the food that we eat. Hippocrates said years and years and years ago that let food be your medicine. Little did he know how much illness could be caused by the food that we eat on a regular basis. the longer I practiced medicine, the more I realized that what we did not know. I thought after 56 years I would have heard everything you could possibly hear. But the last day I practiced in Little Rock Family Practice Clinic, I heard stories of something I never ever heard. So, and things that just do not have a test for. There are so many predicaments and things that you all bring to us in primary care that just don't have a good answer for it. Thank goodness for viruses. Because if I didn't have any other reason for something, I could always blame it on the virus. So sadly, we've been unable to use wisely what we do know, what good, non-biased science tells us. A lot of times, our political views get in the way of our scientific endeavors. And you and I are at the mercy of big business, the lobbyists and scientists that have been paid by big business to publish studies that support some of the harmful things in products. Well, there are two, we'll give you an assignment. There are two documentaries that you all ought to watch. One of them is called Forks Over Knives, and the other one is called Fed Up. And for those of you who have young children, grandchildren, be sure you watch Fed Up, because it's a story of sugar and how we all got addicted to sugar. And this has been one of the biggest problems that has evolved over the years, and the story behind how big business and some of the big business scientists have kind of pulled the wool over our eyes. I wish I'd known 50 some odd years ago what I know now about this food disease process, because it is big and more needs to be done about it. These are my new friends and mentors. These are some of the doctors who now are really doing a lot of work with this relationship. Dr. Neil Bernard was in Little Rock a couple of years ago, and I heard his talk, and he is one of the, he does a lot of work with plant-based foods, the vegans. I don't like the word vegan, it's kind of like Star Wars or something, but I like the word plant-based medicine. And he is big in that, and I was sitting down in the front row, and at the time, I was 80, and I raised my hands at the end, and I said, yeah, I'm 80 years old. Is it too late for me to do anything about my diet? He said, absolutely not. He said, doesn't make any difference what age you are, you can improve wherever you are just with your diet. Michael Pollan, for those that might have read some of these or seen them in Defense of Food, the Blue Zone Solution, this is a really fascinating study. Dan Buettner, along with National Geographic, did a 10-year study looking at 5 different areas in the world where people lived healthily to over 100. These were very active people going about their business on a day-to-day basis, living over 100 healthily. And he came and he wrote an article. It appeared in the 2005 National Geographic magazine about what he found. And we'll go over some of the things that he found that make that. They're now doing Blue Zone projects where any group, you Rotarians, could be a Blue Zone project. There is something about a group activity around changing lifestyle that is really important. It can be done by yourself with some education, but if you have a group to be accountable to and to share stories with, you make much better choices that are long-lasting than doing anything by yourself. Forks Over Knives is the story of Dr. Esselstyn, who's a cardiovascular surgeon, and Dr. Campbell, who wrote the China study. Huge study, thousands and thousands and thousands of people looking at where people live, what they eat, what diseases they had or did not have. Fascinating study. The State of Slim, Dr. Jim Hill and Holly White, they direct a wellness center outside of Denver, Colorado. And I was out there last October, and I ran into a mantra that I just couldn't get out of my head, and it was wellness changes everything. Wellness changes everything. Sickness really changes everything, but wellness changes everything for good. So with that as a background, I started looking into wellness and trying to find out what I could do to make folks well rather than to sit around writing prescriptions for illness that they didn't even need. So once you get to a wellness state, and it's different for everybody, but these are the things that you can expect. More energy, a better quality of life, less chance of diabetes or cardiovascular disease and stroke, and you can actually reverse some of these processes up here. At one point, I was a diabetic. My blood sugars were high. I have a father who was a diabetic. I have a son who was a diabetic, and I became a diabetic. I did not want to take medication, so I worked primarily with diet. Now I'm not a diabetic. When I first started on, and my diet right now is a plant-based diet. That means a vegan diet. When I started it, I was 80. Now I'm 75, so it's really important. There's less depression and anxiety, fewer days off from work or school, fewer doctor visits. And this is a big one. This is a big one. It's less money spent on medical care. Wouldn't you rather spend money on something else rather than pills? With all of the chronic diseases we have, and over 80% of them are caused by what we do with our fingers and our forks and our feet. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. But this obesity is our number one problem, because once we look at a number of folks who are obese, there's just a lot of other medical problems that tag along with obesity. But getting obese is not all of our fault, for sure. It is an addiction to sugar, and which started in our childhood. Then we got into the oversizing of everything that we eat and drink. Big food, big pharma, and the group, they figured out the formula and bombarded us and our children, and they continue to do this over and over and over with the TV ads and the pretty boxes and sacks and stories and pretty pictures of pretty people and the like, and the promises, and we became addicted. And our children have become addicted. Our school lunches in most schools is just horrible because of what is served. Some years ago, when I was growing up, and when many of you all were growing up, your food was cooked in your cafeteria using real food, not processed food, no fast food, and we got along pretty healthily. When I first started practice, I got out of school in 1958, a friend of mine and I went in the Navy. We were a flight surgeon in the Navy. When we came out of the Navy, Mary Helen and I, and Jim and Jane Flack, both of them are deceased now, we started Little Rock Family Practice Clinic. That was 53 years ago. And now it's grown to 12 physicians in 2 locations in Little Rock. But through the years, back in the early days, I would make a diagnosis of diabetes maybe once every 2 or 3 months. We didn't have a large diabetic practice. Little Rock Family Practice Clinic today has got 4,000 diabetics on our rolls. 4,000 diabetics. That is a lot. And this is only going to get worse as time goes on. These are some of the comorbidities that we run into with obesity, the cardiovascular problems, the respiratory problems, mental health problems. It just goes on and on and on and on. A lot of things are related that you don't really think about just being related to the obese problem. Most diseases are caused, and this is some 80% of our chronic diseases are caused by what we do with our fingers, which has to do with smoking, with our forks, what we eat, and then what we do with our feet, or lack of what we do with our feet, and that's the lack of exercise. Lifestyle changes can prevent or reverse some, if not all, of these chronic illnesses. Even cardiovascular heart disease, the arteriosclerosis, can be reversed by going towards a plant food diet. Our lifestyle causes these diseases. We ate ourselves into our problem, and the only way we're going to get out of this problem is to eat ourselves out of it. But we've got to change our lifestyle. I don't like to talk about diets because diets kind of have the connotation, I'm going to die, I'll lose weight, then I can live happily ever after. What happens in that scenario is within about 6 months or a year, most people, over 90%, will regain the weight they lost plus 10%. And that same thing goes with diet pills. I have patients every day. Somebody asks for a diet pill, and I wouldn't like them because of the same thing. You can't take diet pills forever. Even the 3 new ones that are out there that you can't take forever. Once you get off, within a year or so, you're going to gain all your weight back plus 10%. So you're worse off by taking these things. So our lifestyle causes these diseases, and changing our lifestyle is the only way to reverse the process. Too late to change our parents or from moving out our genes, but there's a lot of other things that we can do. My father had a stroke at 55, so it's not a very good gene to have in your background. I warn about epigenetics. We're all born with all kinds of genes. Some are good, some are bad. But some genes need a key to unlock that gene so that it will do its trick in your body and can cause things like cancer, heart disease, obesity, and some of the other chronic diseases. Finding out what that key is, and a lot of these keys are in the food we eat. Avoiding the keys that unlock the gene can relock the gene, its expression goes away, and the process is reversed. That's not so for all diseases, but it is for a number of diseases and disease processes. Anybody know a pill that will cure any of our chronic illnesses? Tell me, please. There is not one. We ate ourselves into this problem, we're going to have to eat ourselves out of the problem. Some of the new research around recognizes that each of us are really unique in the way we absorb and metabolize our vitamins and nutrients and everything that we have, and the way we interact with our environment. Our genetic makeup, gut bacteria, body type, foods, mental changes, and chemical exposures, all of these things are involved in wellness as well as disease. These are factors of good health. I think we all can realize that living and working conditions that we spend our day in has got a lot to do with the way we feel. Whether we're happy to go to work, we like our work, we don't like our work, some of the individual skills that we develop and the choices we make in life have to do with our factors of our good health. Choices like whether we smoke or not, or drink or not, or use some of the recreational substances or not. Our biology and genetic endowment, our physical environment, and the healthcare system, all these wrap up to be factors for maintaining good health. What's the healthiest religious group in the United States? Anybody know? Healthiest?
Seventh-day Adventist.
Seventh-day Adventist. Why are they the healthiest?
Vegetarians.
Do you hear what he said? Vegetarians. The Seventh-day Adventists worldwide are the healthiest group. Maybe not worldwide, at least in the United States for sure. And the reason that they are the healthiest is because members are encouraged to eat a well-balanced vegetarian diet, and they avoid meat. Members are expected to abstain from alcohol or anything that is a mind-altering substance. Adventists have a lower rate of early death, obesity, heart disease, certain types of cancers, stroke, and diabetes. Boy, that almost makes you want to be a Seventh-day Adventist. Now, it's not just barely better than the rest of the United States or other religious sects. Things like the death rates from all cancers are 40% less for men and 24% less for women. This is a column that you want to look at. Because they don't smoke, there's almost 80% less lung cancer in Seventh-day Adventists than others. 62% for colorectal cancer, 15% less for breast cancer, 34% less for heart disease in men, but only 2% less in women. I'm not sure why that is, but it's the only outlier of the rest of it. But all in all, Seventh-day Adventists, because they are vegetarians and they Many of them don't smoke and don't use any other drug or alcohol. Yeah, there's another study in Holland that went on called the Dutch Advantage Study, and if you look at that, almost 50% less of all these diseases in the Seventh-day Adventists. That there's something that they don't do that is causing a lot of their problems, and it just has to do with what they're eating and what they're drinking. Which is the healthiest state in the United States? Colorado. Why? What is it?
Smoking all that pot.
I didn't hear that. Colorado is the healthiest state in our nation, and what that relates to is they have fewer folks with obesity and overweight than any other state in the nation. Which is the most obese state in the nation? Yay, Arkansas, we're finally winning something. Yeah, we are the most obese state in the nation. And the biggest problem to me is our children are the most obese children in the nation. You know, until a year or two ago, we were second to last. Mississippi only. They smoked more pigs than we did. But we figured out how to do it, so now we're number one. I was at the Anschutz Wellness Center in October, and that's a wellness center where I got the mantra about wellness changes everything. They put together a national weight control registry. 10,000 people are registered in this registry, and to get in, you have to have lost 30 pounds and kept it off a year. The average weight loss in this group was 70 pounds, and they kept it off for 6 years. Now, how did they do that? Well, these are the common threads that run through that group. Now, that group was not being treated or anything. That was from all across the United States. Some of them did it by themselves, some of them were in programs. But this is what they did. They ate real food, fresh and local when possible. They avoided refined and processed food. So refined sugars, refined flours, all alike. That made up their diet. Fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, whole grains, and nuts and things. They were active every day. And this is one reason the Coloradans are so healthy, because they are so active. Coloradans don't get together for lunch. Coloradans get together to go for a bike ride, or go for a hike, or some kind of activity. So they're much more active than a lot of us are. They stayed true to their purpose, and this purpose, I'll say more about that in a minute. But this is one of the keys to changing your lifestyle and keeping that change, is to keep whatever purpose you have in mind. These folks believed they could succeed in their program. They made healthy living fun, and they created a healthy environment. Smokers like to smoke together. Overeaters like to overeat together. And folks who want to change their lifestyle, they'll do that together. And this is why groups are so important. That's to tell me that I've got to shut up in a minute. All right, so this is some of the ideas for why you want to change your health and lifestyle, and what your purpose is. You want to ask if your present lifestyle is helping you or blocking your quest for better health. Consider how living a new lifestyle would help. Just consider how less money you're going to be spending 5 years or 10 years down the road. Once you get into somebody's pocket, usually they'll begin to understand the seriousness of it, and this is a big pocket to get into. You need to expect success from your program. Most people in these programs are the optimists or they're defeatists. The optimists say, bring on the kale. Anybody like kale? Good. The defeatists, they have excuses for why they can't do all these things that you want to do. So excuses. You've got to make healthy decisions automatically. You've got to use a lot of planning, a lot of willpower. I have a friend called Will Power. Will and I get up in the morning and we can lick the world. But as the day goes on, at 82, I get a little bit tired or a little bit more early in the day every day. So does Will Power. By the end of the day, Will Power is just about petered out all the way. And I start snacking and I do things that I would not do at 8 o'clock in the morning because willpower is still working for me. But willpower is a real good thing to have. You've got to create a supportive environment. Create an environment that you live in that it's easy to eat what you need to eat and to exercise that you need to exercise. Whys are important, and they become your impetus for changing lifestyle. And some examples of whys are wanting to see your children, grandchildren. Mary Helen and I are working on 2 great-grandchildren. You know, when I became a great-grandfather, that didn't bother me near as much as realizing that I had a grandfather for a son. Another one is wanting to have more energy, wanting to prevent chronic illness, wanting to have a meaningful life, and wanting to leave a legacy of some sort and feel good. So defining your and writing out your purpose of life, it's a good exercise. Questions like, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? Who am I supposed to be? How do I want to be remembered? What makes your heart sing? That purpose really becomes a guiding principle, and it does make it easier to stay the course, whatever course you're talking about in whatever venue. So define it, write it out, post it, review it often. A lot of times we'll have multiple purposes anyway. This might help you to define your purpose. This comes from a Yale graduate who was at his 20-year graduation reunion. And he began asking around his peers how they liked the life they lived. Were they happy? Most all of them were successful because they graduated from Yale, and most of them Yale lawyers. 80% of them did not like the lifestyle they had. 80% of them did not just feel like they were where they wanted to be. They had everything they could have, but they really were not happy with it. So I came up with these 5 questions to define your purpose. Who are you? Simply your name. What do you do? What are you living? What are you working? What's your day-to-day doing? Who do you do it for? And what do they want or need? And how do they change or transform what you give them? It turns out that the 20% who really liked what they were doing it for somebody else. They had not gotten away from just doing whatever they were doing for themselves. And those that were just concentrating on themselves were very, very unhappy. So use the answers to craft a personal mission statement that reveals your ultimate purpose. Life. I want to become more physically and mentally active and learn more. My purpose is to incorporate a healthy balance of work and personal time. I want to study and be able to teach reading and writing to slow learners, and so forth. So, changing lifestyle, studies have shown that sharing your program with family, friends, peers, and again, this concept of doing it within a group will help. Focusing on new behaviors rather than focusing on changing old behaviors is a lot more likely to make a change for good. And as a definition of wellness, it really encompasses mind, body, and spirit. It's not just physical, it's not just exercise, but it's mindfulness, it's spiritual, it's taking time to reduce the stress in your life. And you have to work out how you're going to do this. By some type of meditation, that's what's wrong, we've got too much medication. But meditation is a good way to do it. So it's a condition of good physical, spiritual, and mental health that's maintained by proper diet, exercise, and habits. Much more than just simply a lack of disease or disorders or exercise. I'm going to stop right there and see if you have any questions at all. This is just part of about a 4-hour program. Yes, sir.
Okay. If you had to tell us the single most important thing for us to do to improve our lives,
I got it.
what would it be?
Make your diet a plant-based diet. That's a vegan diet. It's the meats and the fats that have really done us in. So becoming a vegan, I'm a vegan, and I have been doing this now for about a year and a half. I was kind of a vegetarian, not totally, for 3 or 4 years before that. But the very first thing I realized was how much more energy I had. So, somebody else, yes, sir.
Good question. How much water should we drink?
A good guess is about 8 glasses, 8 ounce glasses a day. And some more, some less, depending on what you're doing. Yes, sir.
Okay. Real quick, because I know we're at the end of the program, what's the best way to go off of sugar? Do you go cold turkey or do you wean yourself off?
There's all this, a lot of stuff about some of the sugar substitutes, some of them may be good. I personally use Splenda because I do like a little sweet. That is a whole lot better than sugar. We know the deal about sugar. I mean, sugar is that's the worst thing around. But you can wean yourself off. And when I talk about even changing this lifestyle, going to a vegan diet, that doesn't mean you go home and throw everything away and go out and buy all vegetarian and fruits and whole grain. You want to do it just slowly. As you run out of stuff in your pantry, then replace it with a healthier thing. And it may take you 6 months, it may take you a year to get, but the closer you can get to a vegan diet. If you look at all the diets that are out there, they all say, take this pill or take this powder, and more vegetables, more fruits, more whole grains, and nuts. And some of the studies, actually, nobody's asked about alcohol, but in the studies, it shows that people who drink about a jigger of red wine every day, live longer, a couple ounces. You and I know what a jigger is, right? Yes. Yeah, but actually, they live longer than those who did not. So, I'd go, if you listen to TED Talks, bring up Dan Buetter's TED Talk, and he talks about these 5 areas where everybody is hungry. It's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Any other questions?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
do you have to take vitamin and mineral supplements?
You know, it's funny. All these people lived to be 100, didn't belong to a gym, they didn't have an exercise program, they didn't take any vitamins, they didn't take any supplements, they didn't do anything. But now, having said that, I take a multivitamin every day, just in case. Yes, sir.
I've been practicing being a vegan for 2 years now, and I can say that it's actually changed my life. Like, I've lost 80 pounds.
This is my people over here.
And the best way I got started, I went cold turkey, but what I found out was when I researched what's in my food, and you see all the chemicals, and you see how the food is cooked as far as processed versus natural food, then that motivates you more to change your diet. And also knowing what's in your food, or what vegetables you're eating, what herbs you're intaking, because that also, each food has a benefit. If it's from the earth, then everything has like its own proper category as far as things that, like garlic being an anti-inflammatory, and instead of taking medications like aspirin, I might eat a certain fruit or a vegetable, and that will eradicate it.
There's no doubt about it. The closer we get to a plant-based diet, and I'm not trying to make vegans out of everybody, but just the closer you get, the healthier you're going to be. And if you have a disease, it's going to improve that disease. It may reverse it totally, it may reverse it partially. But the biggest thing is you're going to feel better. And if you want to live longer, you're going to live longer. If you don't want to live longer, then keep on doing what you're doing. Well,
Hedges that gave us, I think, all some things to think about. And our thank you gift that we give to our speakers each week is that our club adopts a project, and our project this year is called Newspapers and Education. It's through the Log Cabin Democrat, and so we'll be donating 50 newspapers in your honor to local classrooms, and then the teachers will use that in their curriculum for their students.
I wonder where you get that picture.
It's on the internet.
I think there's a commercial about that. All right, well, if you'll stand, we'll adjourn with the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do,
Is it true?
is it
Fair of all concerned. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Y'all have a good
Okay, see you, man.